time.
Nice to see you, Titus. Hello, good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
So good evening, everyone. Welcome to this session where we.
Hello, good evening.
Yeah, good evening. I am Tekla Bunwe and community lead for WeFund Cloud, and today is a special session where we will be talking about working as a cloud architect. So today we have a lot in store for you, and we are hoping that those that are joining us on the different platforms will be able to pick up or learn one or two things to boost their own careers. So today we will start by getting a rundown of our program, and this will be done by the team lead of WeFund Cloud, Ms. Niyu Tata. I'm going to hand over the floor for her to give us a rundown of the program. Over to you, Niyu.
Yeah, thank you, Tekla. So we already started with the welcoming everyone, and the next will be an overview of WeFund Cloud, like where we are, what courses we have available, and this will be given by Fomi Banjika. Next, we'll go to part 2 of our program. That will start with getting a role as cloud architect, in which our panelists will discuss about that. Then next we'll have a 5 minutes coffee break, tea break, and later on the part 2 would continue with working as a cloud architect, which our panelists here, of course, would give you more insight on that. And the last but not the least section of our agenda would be the question and answer sessions, and that will be then later we'll have like closing remarks. So
Yeah,
thank you all once more for joining. And
yeah, thank you very much, Niyu. I'm going to move directly to the second part of the program, which is an overview of WeFund Cloud. At least it will be good for everybody to know what we do, what courses we offer, and this will be handled by the founder of WeFund Cloud, Mr. Banjikango. Over to you.
Yeah, good evening, everyone, and welcome again to another session after the last one we had. And basically, we know there are some new people joining us here today. So also those who are watching us on our YouTube channel, and we are glad to let you know that WeFund Cloud is your reliable companion in your cloud journey. Key thing is we demystify the cloud and make it fashionable for all. As WeFund Clouders, we always say, we die here. And for those who are wondering, it's just a phrase in Pidgin from West Africa, which is just meaning that we are committed to the end. So once you become a WeFund Clouder, the key goal is to remain committed till you move into this journey, and the cloud journey is never ending. So what about WeFund Cloud? For those who are completely new, or for those who are here who want to have a refresh, the key thing is we started this journey some time ago, and the key point was to help everyone at least realize that they can be certified. That has been very successful, as we will see. But what I want to deal with is the current courses that we're offering, right? Based on our experience and what has been happening, we realized the need for strong fundamentals. That's why we introduced the Linux Fundamentals course, which has been going on. It's already coming to an end next week. The networking fundamentals will be coming up immediately after that, and we are very lucky to have a subject matter expert here in networking, Akwo, who's working with Mike to deliver that course, a 4-week course. We've always been doing the AWS practitioner course. The last one was finished in December. Some of our members got certified. They are doing the fundamentals. And after that, we'll be starting with the architecting course with AWS in April. And this course is going to be different from the previous courses we had, because based on our experiences and based on the kind of people that we work in, we realize that the normal courses that you find, be it in Udemy, there's always something lacking. And after our own experience, we are trying to come up with a course by WeForm Cloud that is going to make people really appreciate the cloud more. So we're going to lay more emphasis on hands-on, 2 days a week theory, 1 day practicals, hands-on. And we are so lucky to also have a committed member like Teofil, who has been leading the lab sessions since almost for the last year and has continued this year. We are so happy to also have a certified Scrum Master with us, who has been delivering the Scrum Master course. A good number of those who took that course passed their certification courses last December, and they are involved in WeForm Cloud now on different levels that I'll mention as I go along. So that's an overview of the courses that we have. And if you're interested, be watching out for on the links with which maybe our team lead will be sending them out soon. The next thing is on WeForm Cloud is getting certified is not enough. Hands-on labs is key. As I mentioned, Teofil is leading the hands-on labs every Tuesdays and Friday. Tuesdays are for beginners. Fridays are for advanced members, because there are people who started right last year. They have done almost 6 months of Cloud Labs, and they are different. So they are different levels. Those who are just beginning, this is a time for you to join and don't miss out. We have WeForm Cloud projects. There are 3 different teams: the serverless, the site-to-site, and the web identity. And our certified Scrum Master, who is also experienced, is leading and helping those who became certified as Scrum Masters to understand how to lead teams using agile methodologies. So this comes up, the stands up comes up every Monday and Wednesday, and also depending according to need, because the teams also meet separately to discuss the task that they have. Based so far, WeForm Cloud have 76 plus members certified with practitioner certification, 22 plus for the solutions architect level. There are 4 AWS architect professionals in our group. And we have for professional Scrum Masters, there are about 5, 6, but then there are other certifications in our group that are more that we've not really counted on this list. So this is just an overview of the number of certifications in WeForm Cloud at the moment. Our success stories is we have 2 cloud architects now working full-time. We have a cloud engineer that works from cloud. We have an infrastructure architect. We have 2 members that are working in the Restart program as trainers. We have 1 certified Scrum Master. These are people that are actively working. AWS community builders, there are now currently 8 of them. Antoine just announced his success, so he's joining to be 9 today. So things keep changing at WeForm Cloud. So with all of this, WeForm Cloud started, and it was more of offering it for free to the community. But what we realized at some point was it was difficult to know who is serious, who is committed, and which way to go. Because at times the door was open, people move in and out. So we decided to introduce WeForm Cloud membership plans, but still making it affordable for everyone who is willing to join. So we still ask just the barely minimum that is completely, if you compare with what we offer and what is offered in other places. So with the premium membership, with the membership plans, there are 2. There's a standard, which is free, so you have access to the general Telegram group, and you have access to the sessions like the one today. Everyone is invited. But then for the premium membership, you then have access to the general Telegram group. You have access to the bi-monthly sessions. You have access to premium material. So there's a separate Telegram group for premium members, and premium members will have access to the Linux and networking and the Python course that we also look forward to do later on. So once you have your premium membership, you can then have access to those courses. We'll also be looking forward to be delivering deep dive sessions. If you notice, we no longer have 4 times a month. The Saturdays, we want to really maximize and make value of our Saturday sessions, right? So we're going to be having deep dive sessions as from April. And this will also be available for the premium members. And just same as recorded sessions that we have for the premium membership. So since we are introducing new courses and we want to really increase the quality of what we offer, so for the different courses and the projects that you see, they'll have their different prices, and that will always be, you'll always be informed about that. We also try to offer lots of mentoring and referrals depending on the capabilities of our members. So WeFundCloud keep growing, and there are lots of opportunities. And definitely for those who are performing, we can always see how we can help you in this journey. We don't want people to remain here, of course, just doing certifications, right? We want them to move on. So as I said, membership, 15 euros for those in Africa. We know that Africa is always different, so challenges are different from those out of Africa. 15 euros is not an easy sum for some, but at least it's affordable for anyone who wants to be serious and have this. And if you are out of Africa, it's 25 euros. And this is for absolutely everyone who wants to identify as a premium member in WeFundCloud. Then we have the PayPal account. And if you don't have, if you need a different form of payment, you can reach out to the WeFundCloud team, maybe for the Momo number or bank transfer. So, but generally you have the WeFundCloud PayPal account. Just an overview of the calendar. So we have January, as I mentioned, the projects did start, we did celebrate those who did pass their courses. In February, the Linux course started, early February the 7th. Projects have continued. We have panel discussions like this one. In March, it will be the same. So looking forward for those who are looking for the networking course, that's starting sometime in March. And then we'll have April, May will be similar, but in April, we're starting then with the architecting with AWS course by WeFundCloud, by WeFundClouders. So look out for that course. Other courses we would like to bring in is Python, AWS CloudFormation, SQL for beginners, Terraform. What we are lacking here is resources, but yeah, we know there are certified members in our community who some of them have these skills. So if you are interested and you want to lead one of these courses, you can always reach out to me or our community lead or Lady N for more, so that we know, or if you know someone who can be willing to volunteer to offer this for the community. So that's the information you have for PayPal, and we're here. So I'll leave this back over to you, Lady T, so that we continue with the program for the day.
Thank you very much for me. WeFundCloud has been growing and it's evolving. We've had lots of certifications, as you've heard. And what we are doing now is trying to translate these certifications into people actually having jobs. So this is why we are shaping the program. We are putting in things and different discussions to empower. We are trying to exploit every opportunity in our midst and out of our circle to ensure that we empower our own. So this session is one of those that has been, we are putting out there to make sure that we empower our own. And this part of the program will be moderated by one of our dearest, a specialist in communication. She will be handling this working as a cloud architect, and she will moderate the discussions. And I'll call on our sister Shulika Tata to take over and introduce our panelists. Shulika, over to you.
Okay, thank you, Lady T, and thank you, team, for organizing such a great session. At this point, I would introduce the panelists, our guest of the day, and I would let them introduce themselves as well and their roles. And then from there, we'd have conversations around, getting a role as a cloud architect, working as a cloud architect, and possibly any other questions that we all have here. So our first guest is Mr. Akwo Fese Efimba, who has been and was my classmate in WeFundCloud. We were the first batch to graduate WeFundCloud, and it's been an honor knowing them and working with them. So I am so happy, and congratulations to you, Aku, for being and for getting the role of a solutions architect. I will let you introduce yourself better.
Thank you, Shalika. Yes, my name is Akwofese Fimba, as mentioned. So presently a cloud architect working for one of the major global consultancies, a role which I've been doing for the past 7 months. Previous to that, I spent about 25 years working in the telecommunications industry, working in voice and data networking systems in a role as a consultant. So this is really an opportunity. I apologize for the noise. Yeah, so this is really an opportunity for you to share my cloud journey from joining with OnCloud 2 years ago to becoming a cloud architect. So happy to be here. Thank you.
Awesome. And thank you for accepting, to share your journey with us and motivate everyone who has been part of this journey and who is looking to joining this journey. So the next, we are going to talk to Mr. Pride Achu, who is also with OnCloud graduate. And Pride has been very active on his LinkedIn, on the LinkedIn forum, and he does share quite a lot of the work he's been doing. So it is no surprise that he got a role, and I'll let him blow his trumpet.
Thank you very much, Sulika. Hello, everyone. I'm elated to be here, as usual, joining and talking to, excuse me, everyone at Went From Cloud. Pride Achu is my name. I am a cloud architect with one of, it's a betting company. It's an organization here in the United Kingdom. It's got branches all over the world. I'm a cloud architect for that organization. Prior to that, I had no background in IT or anything. I just left custom broking down in Douala and went straight into IT, and that's it. So for those who don't have any IT background, feeling like this is too much for you, I am a testimony to that. It's not. So that's it. I don't have the kind of background that my colleague just spelled out, with so many years of experience in the IT industry. But that's me. That's just it. So I think my journey just starts here. Thank you for having me again.
Amazing. And I like the fact that one of the things you throw out there is you don't have any experience or background in IT, right? Because those are some of the very first questions people wanting to join IT or cloud computing in general usually ask. Do I need a background in IT? Do I need to know some coding? Do I need to have had computer science classes? And I'm happy that we have Pride here, who prouded himself to telling us his story and highlighting the fact that he has no IT background at all. So at this point, we're just going to have conversations. Don't feel like it's a question and answer session. It's a conversation for us to share your journey and to talk more about your experience throughout your cloud journey from the very beginning to getting a role as a cloud architect. So the first question I'm going to ask, if you don't mind answering, Mr. Aku, who is a cloud architect, or what would you say a cloud architect is?
Well, a cloud architect, I think we should just, best way to do it is to break it down into what it really is. So I think the first thing would be the cloud, if we put that to one side, but we have to look at an architect. An architect is somebody who designs, or in another way of looking at it, it is somebody that builds something. So when we're referring to a cloud architect, you are talking about a person who is there to actually build an infrastructure in the cloud. For those of you who may be new to this concept of the cloud itself is really a coming together of a number of resources and assets in the information technology world. But primarily what it does bring together is it brings together computer processing in terms of computing power. It brings together networking, that's the connectivity of these devices, and it brings together as well to the storage of the information that you gather from it, and the security which is designed to protect it. So as a cloud architect, what you're really brought in to look at is to either build a system from scratch, which would be hosted in the cloud, or you're coming in to either improve, or let's say modernize or optimize that system so that it meets a particular objective. And if you take the notion of an architect of a house, you're always working towards a specification which your client, the person who wants to live in that house, has to do. So it's the same principle as well when we're talking about the cloud, because you always have to work towards a specific list of requirements from the person who is going to be consuming this service in the end. So that's at a very high level what I would say a cloud architect does.
Nice. So if I hear you well, a cloud architect is basically someone who designs the backbone of an architecture on which you could build up resources.
Yes, I think now that we're in the IT world, when you talk about a backbone, it has different connotations. But primarily, yes, you're working within the field of cloud computing, and you are building services for your clients or for your company, as we say, either building them, designing them, or modernizing them.
Okay.
And I think my esteemed colleague Pride will give you some very interesting perspectives as to what cloud architecture may not necessarily involve. So I think there's some very interesting elements there, but I'll leave him to edify us on those elements.
Well, actually, I agree with you on everything you said. I mean, I love the analogy you used, like, using the analogy that an architect, someone who designs. I mean, if you're an architect and you have to design a house, it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to design what's inside the house as well. Sometimes, some people can design houses. They don't even build those houses. It's just, design the houses, and some other person goes on and builds the houses. So a cloud architect basically is you definitely just have to have an understanding of the cloud. If it's okay for me to use that word, and it's a word you should be accustomed to by now, you should have a knowledge of the various resources that you can use in the cloud, integrating all of these resources together, coming up with a solution vis-a-vis the requirements that you had, vis-a-vis requirements from a client. So you're basically just designing a solution, and sometimes it's your place to implement the solution. Sometimes it's not, but it depends. It varies from organization to organization. Sometimes they might let you implement. Sometimes you just have to design, like basically just draw. And that's it. And some other person will take up the implementation. So I think I don't have any other thing to add. I will just agree with Akko on everything, but it's pretty straightforward.
Okay. And I like that you both agree on that, and also highlight the fact that as a cloud architect, you don't necessarily have to build on what you designed, but you can just draw the architecture. And which brings me to my next question, because often we've had the word cloud architect and cloud engineer used interchangeably. So how would you differentiate a cloud architect from a cloud engineer? Are they the same roles, or do they play different functions within cloud computing?
Now, that's a very interesting question, because I think in the end, when we always talk about these things, it's always in the eye of the beholder. So who is the person that is actually requesting these services? And what I'd like to try and inform our audience here is that it always depends on, you will always say this cliche, it always depends, but and that has meaning because it's down to the organization to define what the role is. But when we look at an engineer, as opposed to an architect will design, and then the engineer will execute, will build. So in that respect, that is looking at it at a simplistic level. Now, there are some organizations which we may ask an architect to go above and beyond the responsibilities of actually designing it. So you'll be responsible for actually deploying that particular architecture, or let's say optimizing the change in which you have recommended. Now, outside in the other IT role in some certain companies that I've worked for previously, that was what was expected as an architect, that you were responsible for actually executing, deploying what you've come up as a proposal. You make sure you test it and you do it. So the remit in itself can be quite wide ranging. But what I find, and in my present company, what I find is that they tend to keep those two roles independent. So there are specific people to do that. So as rightfully as Pride said, is that as an architect, you are expected to know at least the building blocks of what makes up the cloud, understand the relationships between those entities, and also understand how you can bring them together. But there's some very specific things that I think a cloud architect brings. But a cloud engineer really would be the person that would be there, that would work off the design and would bring into reality what a cloud architect has put forward as either a new design or a modernization plan or an optimization plan.
Right. Mr. Pride, I feel like you have something to add to it.
No. I'm basically just agreeing with what my colleague is saying here. I know, we usually see eye to eye on most of these issues,
Right.
but basically, I agree on everything he said. The cloud architect and cloud engineer aspect, sometimes people just use it interchangeably, and arguably so there isn't much of a difference. But I just think that as a cloud architect, a cloud architect is limited to designing, and a cloud engineer is limited to implementing what the architect actually built. But nowadays you have organizations trying to save cost, so they'll try to look for someone who can actually do both roles. So you can design and you can implement. That way they'll pay you rather than paying two people to do the same job. But I mean, ordinarily, they're supposed to be separate roles. And in my organization, it's a separate role. We have cloud engineers, we have cloud architects, and when we design, the engineers, they go ahead and implement. So, but there are some organizations you might find yourself in, and they expect you to actually wear that cap as an engineer. So,
Okay.
yeah.
So, what advice would you give to those who are learning or who are, making their journey to the cloud? Should they choose one of those roles and focus on, or should they take an integrated approach? Which of these approaches would get them to the market more?
Well, it depends. I think there are many roads that lead to Rome, as they say. So it comes down to what your preference is. There are some people that have a natural proclivity, let's say, to development, to deployment. They like hands-on activities. They have some coding skills. It may be in Python, it may be in Java, for example, or they also like, the exploration of using certain tools like Terraform or CloudFormation, those things. So if you find that that's where your passion really is, and that's what you really want to do, I mean, that's a very valuable skill in doing it. And it's a skill too which is very richly rewarded, and you find that roles as a cloud engineer, as a cloud what they call a cloud deployment expert, would come in, would be very meaningful. On the other hand, if you want to really understand really how certain systems work, and you're interested in understanding, working with people to define their objectives, to outline their vision. Because a cloud architect, really, at times you may be working with an audience that doesn't actually understand the cloud. So you're working with little bits of information. And I think the best way to even think about it is that if you're the kind of person who is, you are happy working in an environment where there's uncertainty, where not everything is fully defined, then a cloud architect role may be something which you may find very appealing to you, because you are there to more or less articulate and define a solution based on certain cues or certain clues which a client has asked you to do. And so it becomes very satisfying when you're able to bring that vision to light. And you can instruct your other team colleagues down, like the cloud engineers down. Okay, this is what my client or this customer is trying to achieve in that light.
Nice. So, Mr. Pride, since we're on the topic of cloud architects, what are some of the resources you can share where people can find, should I say, valuable cloud roles or positions? I know there's a lot of websites that go around where you could go find cloud roles, but which are some of those that you think have really good, yeah.
Honestly, I feel like that's a loaded question, because that's, to be fair, if you're undertaking this journey, every bit of resource is going to help. You will not underestimate any resource at your disposal, or every tool that you know of, anything that anybody points you at, like you can use this one to actually upskill. You just take on it and try to, grab any knowledge that you can. I think I had so many resources at my disposal. I can't even start listing them. But at the top of them, besides WaveFront Cloud, where we all know we actually got, insightful knowledge from WaveFront Cloud. There was Udemy, Wiz Labs, YouTube, Cloud Guru, a bunch of others, honestly. And basically, if you know your way around the internet and you know how to search, you can always get this information from the internet. If you go to Google or to even YouTube itself, there are thousands and thousands of videos there, please. Yeah. So there are thousands of videos there where you can actually grab bits and pieces of information. Because for me, I think, rather than crowding yourself with so much information that are conflicting, it's always good to try to, if you don't understand the concept, you try to go to one of these outlets and try to see where they agree on. That way you can understand the concept better. Just pick a little bit from here, a little bit from there, and then you build your own notion of what a concept is. And that way you are upskilling yourself without even knowing. So honestly, if I have to limit you to a particular tool, I'll be doing you a disservice. So I just advise everybody, anything that you can lay your hands on, even if it's talking to a friend who's had an experience even for 2 days as a cloud architect, or on YouTube, because when you're undertaking this journey, everything around you should be cloud architect related. If you're walking out of the gym, you're not listening to music, you're listening to someone ranting about maybe S3 buckets being deployed somewhere. If you're driving in the car, you're listening about something AWS. Subconsciously, when you wake up in the morning, you feel the cloud around you when you just wake up. That's a journey that, it's not an easy one. It's very tasking. So you really need to surround yourself with every bit of resource that comes your way.
So basically eat, breathe, and live in the cloud.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you for that tip, though. Maybe I did not highlight it better. I was talking more about finding the roles or cloud positions. What are some of those?
Okay, getting the job.
Getting a job.
Okay, yeah. It's. I think it's the same answer. It's still through the internet. You have to go through job portals. There are so many job portals these days, and and depending on where you're located, maybe in Cameroon or in Africa or maybe in the United States, there are job portals that actually tend to cater for these locations differently. In my case, I definitely built my profile on LinkedIn, but that was just from a professional side of things. I used a job serve, and I try to make myself searchable in such a way that as soon as my CV, if you upload your CV on JobServe and you make yourself searchable, you get more recruiters calling you. I don't know if it makes any sense. Yeah, CW jobs, total jobs. I also went as far as looking for companies actually hiring. I went to Google and looking for companies hiring, and I definitely forwarded my CV directly to the organizations. And mind you not, the role I'm working in right now, I actually contacted the organization directly, and they gave me an interview and they gave me the job. So
Nice.
so there is no stopping point for anybody. Anywhere you can actually put your CV in and to get any kind of visibility will help you a great length.
To get a job.
Yeah.
That's nice. Mr. Akko, what are some of the tips, excuse me, you can share on making your CV stand out? Like Mr. Pride was saying, when he uploaded his CV on JobServe or worked on his LinkedIn profile, he did get some people contact him. What are some of those tips you think they can, cloud prospects or enthusiasts can use on their CVs or on their LinkedIn profiles that would make them stand out and attract more recruiter calls?
Yes, I think that this is an area which is extremely important, and I think that it's one which we need to. I think every person needs to put a lot of time into, because it really will pay dividends. I think the first thing that we have to know, and I'd just like to take you back to one thing which Pride said there that was extremely important. I think having the passion for this really comes out, and if you eat, sleep, breathe cloud, and you make it your world, then you would want to really have that reflected as well too in your CV or in your profile. Now your profile really, and your CV, as I was told by one of these recruitment calls, it's all about marketing yourself. This is your, it's your picture out to the world, saying who you are. Therefore, it should have very powerful statements there. And I think one of the key things which I would recommend that everybody does is that when you have something like a cloud architect role, look at a number of cloud architect roles from a number of companies, see the common themes that are there. There are some common elements there. Now, there'll be a request, let's say, for example, one thing is which is very common for cloud architect roles, they'll talk about, let's say, communication skills. Yeah, they'll also mention presentation skills. They could also mention documentation skills. So therefore, and they'll also talk about, having competency in the cloud. Now, they may request, let's say, that you have a competency in a specific cloud or cloud in general. So, so the reason why I'm saying all this is that you would want at least to find out those general themes where there's commonality there, and make sure that you convey those in, let's just say, your opening statement, which is there, and also convey that as well to let's say, to give a snapshot or an overview of the type of experience that you have. So those things really have to come out, let's say, in your first page. Because the other thing that we also have to take note of is that we live in an era whereby the attention span of a lot of people people are busy. So therefore, the thing is that you want to make your profile catchy, you want to make your CV catchy, so that your first page really has to really, what you really are, and the fact that you are suitable for that role, so that there's a clear association with, Akwofese Efimba, cloud architect, or Pride Achu, cloud architect, or whoever it is, cloud architect, that stands out from the core. So it's always recommended that I would say that look at some of these profiles, make sure that some of the keywords where, you know, a cloud architect is. So if at all, let's say for a cloud architect role, they're asking that, oh, you must have Terraform experience. You must make sure that that's in the first page of where it is. That's just an example. If somebody may ask you, oh, you must have knowledge of let's say of a continuous improvement or continuous development project experience, you have to make sure that you convey that. So you have to make sure that all those treasures which you have, all those experiences which you have, which are relevant for that role, are within, you know, the eye shot of where people can easily capture that. They don't have to struggle to see it. It must be clearly visible. So that's what I would recommend, really, in terms of approach.
Nice. Thank you for sharing. And I think my next question, I would really love both of you to share your experiences. How would you describe the interview process, both from the call till having conversations with the interviewers till getting the job? And what were the interviews like to you? Were there a lot of technical questions, or were there a lot of behavioral questions? And, you know, how was it for you both?
Right, do you want to go first?
Well, I always defer to you, you know, since you
All right.
I always
Well,
let you take the lead, so it's all right, you know.
no worries. Well,
Okay.
I think from the interview process, I think the interview process really starts from, I would say, when you put your CV out there and who really approaches you. So I think once you've had an approach, you should count that really as a success, because at least you have achieved one thing, in the fact that your profile has at least there's something in your profile that has stood out, where it is somebody would like to take the time to know a little bit more. So typically, you know, the interview process in itself may involve about I would say at least three stages. So the first stage really is an opening stage, where in this case you may have somebody who may be, let's say, a recruiter either working for a company, or let's say an independent person working on behalf of a company or an organization that wants your particular service. And that person would really want to establish what you are. I mean, they like what they see, and really they'll be approaching you, contacting you to find out whether you're interested in such and such a role, and really establish what your level, you know, what your current position is. Are you available for work, which is the most common thing there? Are there any instances, for example, or what is your current situation right now, of that nature? So that typically becomes, let's say, the first part where you're having that kind of engagement there. Now, it could be that person or those individuals speaking to you, they are not necessarily technology savvy. They may have seen some things that they're there as kind of like the first port of call to screen, to just make sure that you have you are a candidate who is, at least you meet the opening criteria. So it could be that they already have, let's say, a list of requirements that they look for, and once they've looked at your profile of your CV, you at least meet that element. And so once that happens, you'd find that discussion typically is not really about anything really technical, but it's all about finding about suitability, temperament, availability of that nature. And then if at all that goes well, then you go to a second stage, which is really, this time around, you are speaking to, let's say, one of the recruiting managers, or one of the people that you'll be working alongside. So it depends on the organization. So typically that kind of conversation there, in my experience, has been that that times it involves some level of more or less a technical discussion in terms of substance. The person who is speaking to you then is trying to gauge your level of experience. At the same time too, I think although you're being interviewed, but it's also an opportunity for you to also gauge to also find out about the organization in terms of, who is actually talking to you, because the person who is interviewing you as well is also a window into the organization that you want to join in terms of the culture and how that comes across. So this second interview there is again to kind of general nature, about whether you culturally fit within the organization, and also to whether you have the technical competence to do it. So it's double-edged. So at least I've talked about two, and I think the third one now is really an interesting one. In this case, what you tend to find is that they would a lot of organizations for the cloud architect role will give you a task. They'll give you a case study for you. So they might either do it in one or two formats. They might either tell you that, okay, they might call you in, give you a task, you read up about something. They give you about, let's say, an hour or 2 hours to prepare for it. And then they ask you to present your information to an audience. That's one aspect of it. The second aspect of it is that they can give you, let's say, a detailed case study, and they can give you, let's say, about a period of time, say a week, in order to prepare for that case study. And then, but the same goal is that you're coming there to present it now to the same audience. So some people, they want a short turnaround. Other people may want to give you a bit longer. But the whole purpose of that scenario is to more or less give you some insight to the working practices of that organization or the kind of projects that you'll be dealing with. So they're trying to see right now, said, okay, how can this person cope with that particular element? So I had some very interesting discussions with Pride around, the nature of the interviews, and it was very interesting that that in most cases you had at least 3 stages. Now, in some organizations, you can go up to a 4th stage. Now, if you've gone up to a 4th stage, I think there's something that must be said. You must be doing something right. That's the first thing. I think if an organization is taking the time to call you in, and let's say you're going up to the 3rd stage or even the 4th stage, you must be definitely doing something right. Because if not, then they would, why bother? So that's been my experience, that you would have at least 3 between 2 or 3 stages. In some very rare occasions, you can have up to 4 stages of the interview process.
Nice. I know you did mention that you and Pride have had conversations around that, and talked about how your interview processes were related or kind of connected. So let's talk about the presentation piece, right? So I'm assuming this is the part where, like we do in Beaufort Cloud, doing group work and coming up to present, do invoke some of those soft skills that are required or needed when you're doing going through an interview. So in the case where you have some of those, I wrote it down, where you have the detailed case studies, right? How do you advise one approach them? Or how did you approach them? In your case, Pride, did you have any case study, and what was your approach to the case study?
Well, actually, I had a couple of interviews, 8 or so in number. And each of these interviews had at least 2 phases. I had just one interview where I was giving a piece of work to go back home and work on and present in a week's time. So that was a very complex assignment I've never seen in my life before. And I actually reached out to Accor, reached out to everybody, and They all gave me their own bits, and but it was just one time. And in my experience, these things don't happen often. Yeah, honestly, the parts where they give you a case study and tell you to come back maybe 30 minutes later or maybe the next day and do a presentation, it's likely to happen, but it doesn't happen too often. But in my case, the case study that I had, it was so traumatizing. I just went back and I did a presentation for about 45 minutes. True to God, I cannot even remember what I was saying there. For some reason, they still kept me going. And it only meant that I was saying something right, maybe. And but at the end of the day, I did not get the role, probably because maybe there was someone better than me. And yeah, so that was the case study came in at the third stage of the interview when I thought maybe that was just a formality for me to come and then maybe they'll see how good I am with the English language and then they'll send me a contract over. But that was it. So
Yeah.
like I said, the case study thing, it's honestly, I think it doesn't happen too often. In my experience, I'm not talking about every other person because basically people have their own interview. Some people have just one interviews, basically. Some people have just one interview, one phase, and they get the job. Yeah. So some people go as far as four stages. And yeah, so my case honestly was just one. And I had the case study. It was above my capacity, but I tried. So I went there and I did what I could. Yeah.
And that was probably a good learning experience for you as well.
It was honestly, because one thing you should understand about interviews is the more interviews you attend, the more confident you become. Even if you're spitting rubbish, you spit the rubbish confidently. And when you're talking with these people and then you're looking them in the eye, and you're talking to them, you're actually trying to intimidate them. Even if you're talking rubbish, I think they'll respect you for that. Some people might actually just respect the fact that you're defending your convictions, with all the confidence in the world. So basically, somebody had advised me to, man, forget about that case study, man, go on to the next one. I was like, no, I did not know anything. Honestly, I did not know anything, but I still went to the interview, and 45 minutes on, I was still talking to these guys. Rubbish though, but I was still talking to them.
That's amazing. So I know it's not very. Oh no, go on.
I think I had a totally different experience. I mean, I went through 4 of these kind of case study cases, and I think the one thing, what I'll say is that what they're really trying to understand here is, number one, how do you convey information? That's really the first thing. It's not so much the content in itself or what you're saying, because I think one of the things which we will need to understand as an architect is that there is no perfect solution.
Right.
And when you are building, when you're working as an architect, you're working towards a specification. So it's very rare that you are given, let's say, a blank sheet to just do whatever you want. There are certain, let's say, conditions, preambles in place which are already set, which you cannot change. So therefore, you're already constrained within, there are certain constraints that you have to operate in. So therefore, one of the things about these interviews is that, are you aware of the environment that you're coming into? So Pride is right in saying that, okay, it's maybe what you're actually saying may not matter so much, but are you at least aware of what is really going on? And when you are actually putting forward your suggestions, there is no right or wrong. It comes down to, okay, are you able to convincingly defend the position that you are? I mean, what is the reason for you taking that particular position? And that's where these kind of like case studies become like a discussion instead of, let's say, an interview, because the person they may have a preconceived idea of how they should approach the problem, and then you are actually approaching the problem in a different way. And if you approach it in this way and you state the reasons why, I believe that it's for this and this reason, okay, you're in a position where the person who is there, the interviewer as well, is learning something new, which they may not have thought of, or, you know, if they find, if you cannot really defend those positions, then that's where it becomes a problem. If you're not really convinced about what you're saying. So I think those case studies are really an opportunity for you to express yourself, to see how you can communicate information to an audience, whether you make sense. The actual content itself, there's no best answer. Okay, there's some things which are kind of like left field, maybe wrong, but there are many ways of achieving, of delivering something. And it's a question about, is that what are the particular assumptions, for example, that you're taking into account? What are the dependencies that you're working towards? That's, I think, what a lot of these interviews are trying to find out in terms of the mind of an architect. So you should always realize that in the end, people are saying, because an architect would have to speak to an engineer, convince that engineer that, okay, this is what I believe to be to what we should do. This is what I would like you to implement, and it is based on these particular precepts, right? So an engineer would not want to build something if they're not convinced that the architect knows what they're saying. And the same thing too as well, the architect must be able to convincingly speak to the client and convey to that client that, hey, look, I understand your problem. I understand what you're trying to achieve, and I can take you on a journey in which your problem can be solved. So I think that's really what these case studies are trying to do.
That's interesting, and it's a very interesting perspective you both share about the case studies. Rumor does have it out there that most of these case studies, like we all have already mentioned, which is evident, is that they're trying to measure your presentation skills and how you can explain cloud architecture to probably a non-tech audience or to higher executives, right? And I know that it's a little unconventional for us as job searchers or people in IT to ask or find out what are some of those questions that you encountered during your journey. I don't know if any of you signed any NDA or non-disclosure agreement with any of your companies to disclose some of this information, but I do know that, or I'm sure that you did have different questions across the board. If you don't mind sharing, what are some of those questions that you noticed were very common during your interview process? If you didn't sign any non-disclosure agreements, and if you can talk about them, I'm pretty sure there's a lot of people who want to know, if I'm preparing for interviews, okay, these are some of the common questions that show up during cloud interviews.
I honestly think it's no secret. I don't think we get to a point where we have to sign an NDA to disclose interview questions, because these interview questions, honestly, there are usually very common areas where they'll ask you the same things. It doesn't ever change. And there is just one common area where, based on the answer you give, and this question is usually, what have you worked on in the past? And where you will pick up a project and then you break it down and you talk endlessly of how you worked on this project and you did this and did this and did that. And I think if you're leading an interview like that, the person interviewing you would actually give you follow-up questions based on the project that you worked on. So I'm saying this because there is no set of questions that you expect to see if you go to an interview you go for an interview in an organization and they have a set of questions where they have to give every candidate. The tendency is we can all go, 6 of us, for the same interview, and we'll have 6 different set of questions, but there will be areas where we'll have common questions. Yeah, questions like, tell me about yourself. Tell me about yourself, and what did you work on? Yeah, what did you work on in the past year? And if you're someone who understands how interviews work, you have to capitalize on that question and you have to talk more on your project, because based on the project that you worked on, the interviewer would actually give you follow-up questions. And then you're already prepared for that. So you can actually answer these questions better. But if you leave it open-ended, they will tend to ask you questions that you were not prepared for. So, I mean, this is one of the techniques for interviews. I don't know if it's part of this presentation, but basically that's what it is. So if you ask, I don't know, maybe Akko would differ with me on this, but I don't think there are a set of questions that I don't know. There aren't, in my experience. They are all just basic questions that you go for an interview, and pertaining to your field of experience. How many years of experience have you got? They don't even ask how much salary or you expect to be earning. They don't ask you that, but they will ask you questions pertaining to the role per se. So they will take a look at your CV. Based on your CV, you say you know about EKS. Tell us about EKS. You say you tell us about this. Tell us about this. Tell us about that. And that's about it. They will not ask you questions, from the blue that are secretive or are not meant to be shared out here. So I don't know if Akko would like to add something to that.
Okay.
Yeah, Pride, I think you're on point there. I think one thing is that it's in some cases, maybe some people may have a certain proclivity to ask you about some certain technology things, let's say maybe on containers, for example, or maybe ask you about infrastructure as code. But I think where interviewers get the greatest insight is asking you some very open-ended questions. Like they could ask you and said, okay, describe to me a project or a body of work which you are most proud of.
Okay.
They can ask you something like that. Now, that is something that in itself may strike fear into you, but it's really an opportunity for you to really sell yourself.
Okay.
Because again, they want you to say, okay, what is it that you did? And I think there was one of the sessions that we had here in WeFund Cloud, which actually really helped us. And I think that was actually conducted by Banjika and Nuyu, where they're telling us that, when you're actually having these kind of questions, there's a certain technique in which you do that. So there's a kind of like the start, the situation of what it is,
the action result,
the result, all that area. So there are ways in order to respond to those questions. So when they ask you those type of questions, it's really an opportunity for you to really shine, to really talk about things that you're most interested in. And I think it gives a lot of insight too, as well, to your interviewer in understanding to what kind of technologies or areas that you're familiar with. So if at all it's one to do, let's say, with a serverless project, which you did, and then you can talk about that. Now, it may be that person who's even interviewing you doesn't even know anything about serverless. So so in the end, if you are informing that person, you are giving that person something which they are learning something. I think that I'm very much impressed about that.
Nice.
But at the same time too, so that's why I say pick something which you have mastered, where you have a good mastery of that thing. Yeah, so that's what I would advise that people do. So that's one very common thing where they ask you, okay, what's the work that you're most proud of? Another kind of very typical question which they'll always ask you is that describe a situation where you had to deal with conflict or you had to overcome a certain kind of difficulty.
Right.
Difficulty or setback. How did you resolve that? We've all encountered disappointments or setbacks in our lives. So the same thing too as well. If you can refer to a particular project which you have done, and then you talk about it and you use kind of like the start technique in understanding it, you can carry the person there in showing how you resolve certain things. Again, as a cloud architect, your communication skills will always be very important, because again, you are going to spend a lot of time talking to people, talking to stakeholders. You're speaking to your customer. You're speaking to the cloud engineers. You're speaking to project managers.
Right.
So you're speaking to so they're speaking to lots of people. So you being able to do that is very good.
So what I hear you and Pride say is that it's very important to focus as well on working on end-to-end projects, because most of what you've said is tell us about a project you've worked on. Maybe share an experience of a conflict you had, which would probably be on a project. And why I'm highlighting this is because I don't know if most of our viewers are aware or if they know, but Weave on Cloud does have now the part where they're doing project. Informe didn't mention the serverless projects, the site-to-site project, and the web ID projects. And these are end-to-end projects which you can fully talk about and speak on and use as an experience when working or interviewing for cloud projects. And with this session, I know there's lots of questions we can ask. I don't know if this is something our team leads and our founder would want to do, but the kind of insights you both are sharing are very informative and vital. I feel like we need maybe another session to dive deep into some of those questions and interview techniques and processes of, how to respond to questions, what kind of questions to expect, how to answer technical versus non-technical questions, or how to approach, case studies, if any are given. So this is something we'll leave out there. And we're running short of time. Just a few more questions, and then we'll go to the question and answer session. And one of the main questions we wanted to talk about were, the length of time you've been in this role and your first impressions, which I think you have indirectly shared in responding to the questions as we had the conversations. Lady T, did you have something to say?
Yeah, I would have. I know that this is a very, very interesting and very important part of our conversation, but I would like us to maybe take a break and maybe follow the program somehow. Maybe we should, I don't know what the others think. I think we should have a break for people to digest what we heard. You guys have given out a lot of information, and some people would like to digest it before we step on to the next part of the program. And Aqua and Pride, just know that you will definitely have a lot of people calling you for one-to-one talks and discussions. Please feel free to help them and to give them the support they need. We know you have been doing it, and we know you continue to do it, because as Weave on Cloud says, we die here. And we can only die here when we have people like you who are always there sharing the information, coaching, holding people's hands. And we are really, really very, we appreciate, and we are really proud of you too. I know that we'll continue the program, but I'll beg on you, let's at least take 5 minutes, let people think.
Awesome. To recover.
Yeah.
And
Don't forget to.
What time do you want us to be back?
We have 5 minutes. Oh no, we've already, let's say 30. Let's see at 9:30. Now it's gonna be.
Yeah, I think Lady T, 5 minutes break is okay. Then we come back and talk as working as a cloud architect. After that, then we continue. Yeah,
So
because
let's assume that we are leaving.
So
So half past the hour.
Yes.
can you
Half
hear
past
me?
the hour. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's come back at 9:30, or is it 8:30 your time, and continue the discussion. But thank you so much, and please don't forget to drop your questions in the chat. We are checking, and we expect people to introduce themselves so others can know them very well. And see you at 9:30. Thank you all very much for listening. It doesn't mean we are not closing the Zoom. We just want you to take some water.
Yeah, I
some
think.
juice.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, I think Lady N wanted to highlight on the key links that could be interested. So Lady N, and I see there are some new people here who definitely want to talk about themselves. I see Northside here. Please don't remain hiding on behind your screens. Yeah, okay, I was offline. Please come on chat. Let's see everyone. It's always nice seeing people on video. Oh, Northside.
Hi, Mr. Banika.
Yeah, hi.
Hi, everybody.
Hi.
Hi.
Yeah.
So I'm Nutsa. I knew Mr. Bandika from the university in Duisburg. We study together. And I currently work as a database administrator and also working for the Azure Cloud. And yes, I'm in the consulting area.
Great.
So, and I'm interested for this part of SQL Server, what you mentioned there, because I'm working in the area of Microsoft SQL Server.
Okay, nice.
I'll contact you later. We can speak about it.
That would be great. Nice to have you. We've known each other from the university. Watson, maybe you remember Watson is from Ghana, one of those Ghanaians as well. Watson.
Yeah, I think I remember that phrase.
Okay,
I
good.
remember that phrase very well.
Yeah. So
Yes.
yeah, after a long time, Notsa shouted me on LinkedIn, and I'm happy you had the time to join. So we're glad to have you here with On Cloud, and definitely with On Cloud and God. So nice to have you.
It's an interesting topic anyway.
Thank you. Lady T, Lady N, what do you have as well for the links? Just that people are informed.
Yeah, I just shared a link to, first of all, architecting AWS Cloud. One of our courses coming up in April. I'll still reshare it to people that joined later on. And that's the registration link. And also, if you're interested in the IT fundamental courses, this include networking. We also have Linux. You can join, register below. I've sent the link, so in your chat you'll find that. And okay, feel free to also check us out on LinkedIn and follow us. Yeah, we also share updates on LinkedIn, like what's going on. Maybe we post also things from AWS, like summits going on, services updates. And we also have our YouTube page, especially for those people, maybe if you're interested in the AWS Practitioner Challenge. There's a playlist of what we have had for the last AWS Practitioner batch. So you can join in and start looking around while waiting for the course. So let me share it, and that will be it. This is especially important for those completely new to cloud computing. You can start doing it alongside the IT fundamental courses if you registered for that. So that's it. Thank you. Over to DDT.
I thought we were having a break. I am also having a break. So, no, thank you. So we will start the next part at 9:30 and 8:30 UK time. And we will be looking at working as a cloud architect. So we have the first part of the program, the first part of the interview was working as a cloud architect. Oh, sorry, I'm making a mistake. Sorry. You see, when I told you I'm on break, you're making. Also, we'll be looking at working as a cloud architect. So after this, we will move on to concluding the questions we have under working as a cloud architect. And then we are also going to look at the key takeaways, and we have a closing remark. So I hope Mr. Pride and Mr. Akko, I hope you've taken a glass of water. We've been listening to your experience getting a role as a cloud architect. Now we are moving to working as a cloud architect. So we should be able to understand the difference. And we're expecting that you give us more motivational stories so that some of us can jump into the role. But some of us can follow your footsteps. Some of us who are still not sure or panicking or not having enough confidence can take the step and copy and follow and do the same and go out there and get a job. So it's 9:30. It's Shulika there.
I'm right here.
Okay, over to you.
Okay. So on the second part, I feel like we've handled so many of the questions that I wanted to ask during the second part, because we kind of touched on a little bit of things here and there. But before we left, I did ask a question about, how much time you've been in the job already and what your first impressions were about the job. That is, before getting into the job, did they meet your expectations or were they different from what you thought they were going to be? Pride, maybe you want to take, I know you like giving it over to our boss, Aku, but
Well, in my case, it was my first role as a cloud architect. So honestly, I didn't have any expectations. I just knew it was going to be challenging. So I went in there, folded my sleeves, and I actually went in with a notion that it was going to beat me up. But surprisingly enough, or maybe it's just particular to my organization, they were quite welcoming and they took me in as a baby. And they were actually handing in workloads one at a time and making sure that I was not overworked and I was doing the work that I thought I was going to do, basically. So I don't know if you can use my own experience as an example or as a point of reference, because it was my first role, basically. And it was my first role as a cloud architect. I have to reiterate. And my expectations were pretty much I wasn't expecting much, honestly. I just knew it was going to be challenging, and I knew I was going to work twice as hard to actually keep the job and make an impression as well. I did not want to come up short at any point in time. So it's that simple for me. It was that simple for me. I don't know if it answers your question.
It does. It does. What about you, Aku?
Well, I think when you start a new role, I think similar to Pride as well, too, was my first role as a cloud architect. So going into it, I did go in feeling a sense of pride, but at the same time, too, there was a certain fear of the unknown. I said, well, I'm going into this right now. So it's a question of whether you measure up, whether you meet the expectations there. So there's always that, feeling a bit scared that, okay, you don't know what you're doing, and you always have to. It's a bit of a mental battle to keep yourself focused and at least to try and acknowledge that, okay, you have got this far and you can still go. But I think one thing and this is where your organization really helps in terms of the culture. I think one thing which is it doesn't matter the level of experience that you have. It doesn't matter whether how long you've done the role. When you come into any new organization, there are certain things that you have to learn. You come into any new environment, there are certain things you have to learn. So you have to learn about the people who are around you, who are your colleagues. You have to understand, yet the culture too is very big. If it's a culture whereby there's a certain period of adaptation that you have to go through, where you get to learn about certain things. They tell you about the organization. They have to teach you these things. Any organization that is worth its salt in this day has to do that. It has to invest in people. So there must be a form of what they call orientation, which you need to go through.
Yeah.
So to understand the organization, understand the working practices within the place, understand some of the benefits
Mhm.
which you'll be there to enjoy. Understand other parts about this is how you'll be expected to work, because you may be encountering some certain tools that you've never worked with before. Right. Every organization has their specific tools. Let's say, especially when it comes to things like reporting.
Mhm.
So reporting about, okay, how do you spend your time in terms of your hours? How do you file your time? How do you do your expenses? Of that nature. Where's your office? It may sound like a strange question, but you need to know where you need to go into work. Also, receiving the tools that you need to actually carry out your job. Let's say either laptop, mobile phone, or in this case, it may be a car, or all these things. So there's that element where you go through that process of orientation, adaptation into the organization. And I would say that for most people, they give you grace of about, it may be from 1 month to 3 months at the
Yeah.
very least. Sometimes they don't really expect you to be doing much, because they would get you started. Now, depending on your level of experience, maybe some people will start getting you headlong into projects.
Mhm.
I can tell you that from my experience, from the second week, they started putting me on projects straight away. So I didn't have that much time to be thinking about, okay, where things are. They said, oh, by the way, Akwa, we have this project. You're the cloud architect right now. We have this customer. They have this and this. The timeline is this. The project manager is here. The cloud advisor is here. The cloud engineers are here. So let's get on with it. You see, sometimes they can throw you into the deep end, like that, and you just have to. I think, in my case, I can't. Okay, I'm new to as a cloud architect, but I'm not new to the world of consulting.
Right.
So I've had, if I mentioned from my intro that I've had close to 25 years consulting, but in the telecommunications industry. So, and that's one of some of the transferable skills. So those of you here that have you may have skills in other domains of life.
Mhm.
You may have been a teacher, you may have been an accountant, you may have been a diplomat, and then but you have learned, you have brought some skills
Right.
from those areas, and sometimes some of those skills too also can be applied in the new role that you have. So sometimes you're not coming into a totally new environment, but one thing is definitely clear, is that whatever environment that you work with, you have to work with other people, you have to work with colleagues. There are certain, you need to get on with people.
Mhm.
That's
Right.
just basics 101.
Yeah. And I like the fact that you do highlight skills, particularly transferable skills. Now, being on the job, you did talk about consulting, and I know that though you and Pride work as cloud architects, I know you work with a cloud provider, and Pride works with a cloud consumer, right? Which means probably the skills you both come in with might either be similar or a little different somehow. So what are some of those skills you have seen or you use probably on a day-to-day basis or even very often while working as a cloud architect?
Communication skills, very important. It should be on top of your list. You should be able to talk to your audience, your colleagues, your customers. In my case, true, I'm a consumer of the cloud because my organization, they use the cloud regularly. So I'm charged with actually trying to see that every implementation, every deployment goes as planned, design and all that. So I have to talk to subdivisions or other channels of my organization about how to go about things. So I should be able to communicate with them in a non-offensive manner, in a way that they can understand and build that relationship with them. So it's all about communication, interpersonal skills as well. Because the truth is, knowledge can be acquired, skill you can build on. But your interpersonal skills, being able to relate with your colleagues, because I kid you not, that one should be second on your list. An organization will hire you because you have knowledge and they know that you can actually acquire more of that knowledge and skill, but they need you to also have the skill to be able to socialize and relate well with your colleagues. So on a daily basis, we always have to exhibit that aspect of relating well with our colleagues, because our schedule, it's packed with meetings upon meetings upon meetings upon meetings. So in every meeting which you're coordinating most of the time, you have to be able to convey your message in a very, very calm and understanding manner. And you have to be able to capture your audience. Your audience should be able to understand what you're saying. So, like I said, communication should be at the top of your list, interpersonal skills, the ability to be able to organize your workload or to actually come up with a documentation that is comprehensive as well, because we spend our time writing documents and drawing architectures. So daily basis, that's what happens in the workplace. So I don't know if it's the same for everyone.
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of commonality there. I think communications is such a big thing. I think that it's so important as a cloud architect to be able to convey your information. I think somebody who is in maybe in other aspects of it, maybe say in the much more technical or hands-on areas, you may not need that much emphasis on those areas, because you're there primarily to execute.
Right.
But that is very much a key element. But what I find in when you're doing this role, and my side is that I'm there as a or let's say a cloud promoter, I'd say. So we promote the cloud with our customer base. So Pride's organization, for example, would be our would be an end customer who are trying to transition or migrate to the cloud, or we're helping them to optimize, to optimize our services in the cloud.
So a lot of cloud sales and pre-sales.
Yes, and then there's some people. So I am specifically in the delivery arm. So as a cloud architect, I'm in the delivery. So there, all the discussion with the salespeople and with the solution architect, which is another interesting role, because a solution architect compared to a cloud architect, there are some differences. So a cloud architect is more a specialist. In my being, they can be cloud agnostic, but I think to be effective in this role, you need to have at least a strong foundation in one of the cloud services. In this case, WeFund Cloud, for example, has promoted AWS primarily, but it could as well be either Azure or GCP or Oracle cloud infrastructure. So as long as you have a strong foundation, at least in one cloud, then you can use that as a springboard into other clouds. I happen to be an AWS specialist, but at the same time too, part of the requirements of the role is that I'm able to be multi-cloud. You see, so again, I would say one of the things which is very key to this is that you must, and WeFund Cloud promotes this. WeFund Cloud promotes professional development, lifelong learning, and it's the same kind of attribute too that we must take into every role. And one of the key things I would say of how we are learning things, most of the times we're learning things, but we learn from each other. So your colleagues have the experience, they understand maybe who have been there longer, the way, to do things in a much more efficient way. Because there's no point in actually going to reinvent the wheel when somebody has maybe done something, they have a template somewhere which is repeatable. So the same things that we're talking about in the cloud, automation, building templates and, using infrastructure as code. It's the same thing too in organizations. So once you get inside an organization, try network within that organization, find out, there are certain people that are specialists that have certain talents. If you can find out those people, know those people that have any particular talent. Take for an example, this week I'm having to deal with a project whereby I'm talking about the migration of Windows workloads into the VMware in the cloud. And I was asking some colleagues, oh, by the way, is there anybody that's actually worked on a project on VMware in the cloud? And they say, oh, I know this chap that has done it. So immediately you're building connections with people. I can as well go and read it. Yes, I can find something on the internet. I can read it up. But there are certain kind of things, like when you're actually doing a project, there are certain very interpersonal things which you may not know. There may be some gotchas which or some pitfalls which may be on an AWS white paper. It does not immediately come to you. So I think speaking to somebody as well too that has gone through that process helps you. So I'd say one of your biggest assets is really to build rapport and build a network within the organization that you are, so that you have people, you have a network of people of talents, and you become a talent in your own right. You take your own area to you specialize in, and so people too can also use you as a resource.
Nice. So I heard a couple of things. I heard communication, interpersonal skills, building good team spirit or positive team spirit, and networking. These are things that you probably use in your day-to-day lives, which are really important. And sometimes we underestimate or overlook the importance of just communication, even with our own peers and pals within cloud. So thank you both so much for sharing that. And while we're talking about being cloud agnostic or employing a multi-cloud approach, do you feel that certifications played a huge part, or are certifications very important in getting a cloud role? If yes, what is the minimum level of certification you think would get you a cloud job? And would you advise on people being cloud agnostic?
Well, I'll say this. Certifications definitely have that place. Now, I think for people who may not be coming into it, that do not have a background with the cloud or in IT, certifications are invaluable because they give you a kind of like a structured learning process in order to master this knowledge or this material over a period of time. So if you are disciplined and you can go through this learning program, you can accrue quite a level of knowledge very, very quickly. So I think from that perspective, certifications really are a very valuable tool. And I say a valuable tool because there are other tools too as well that you can use. So I definitely will not. I'll definitely say that certifications are very important. It indicates that you've at least you're opening to learning. It does in a way show that, okay, yes, you have passed the exam, but I would say that it's not the only thing that you should be aiming for. I think that one of the things to which Roof on Cloud to also promotes to as well too is having developing fundamental skills, say in programming Linux and networking, having project skills too as well. So that is just one of the components alongside a number of other assets too that can help you in this job market.
Thank you. Pride, anything to add or share as well?
No, I think I said it all. You know,
Said it
it's
all.
it's
Okay,
it's it's
awesome.
it's equally important because one thing you should look at it like you're using one stone to shoot two birds. If you're preparing for your exams, you're definitely acquiring the knowledge, and if the need arises, definitely. But sometimes students fail to understand that you can actually students fail to understand that, and they just go and prepare just for the exams, and they don't acquire the knowledge, and it comes to bite them in the ass in the future. So you read for your certification. It's very important to have that in the back of your pocket. It's very important because you might need it, and just get your certification, but study for it. Study. You don't have to. You don't have to cram exam questions to just go and get the certification without knowing what you're going for. So study
That's
for
right.
it. Yeah.
That's right. So you both highly encourage getting other skills like the basic Linux, Terraform, Python, SQL if they can, which really add a lot. And if you look at cloud roles today that are being posted either on LinkedIn or wherever, most of those roles are always asking. Some even ask if you have a programming background. There's others that ask if you have networking background. I'm sorry, Linux background, if you can, work on a Linux machine, if you can deploy an infrastructure with Terraform and all that. So I think that it's really important that we highlight these so that as we're sharing the information out there, we know we're just not focusing on the certification, but there's a lot of other skills that are needed to be acquired as we go through our cloud journey.
It's important to mention that there is generally the sentiment sometimes that when you hear about cloud architects, you don't have to, put so much of an effort to understand what maybe Linux, its programming is, coding is, all of that stuff. But it's important, and I have to really stress on that you really, really have a foundation, or not so much of an experience or maybe a mastery of these things, but you should be able to know how to write a few lines of codes in Linux or maybe Terraform. Or it's important because as a cloud architect on your team, you're going to have DevOps engineers, and you cannot communicate with these guys if you don't know what a line of code is talking about. You might not be able to implement or deploy resources using IAC, but if you're communicating with these guys, you need to be able to speak their language too. So it's important, the Linux and all of these other courses that scare people away because it requires you writing lines of code. Please do not for 1 minute think that it's not important. It will take you a long way.
Thank you. Thank you for overly emphasizing that, because it's really important. And that should not scare you, because when people start hearing code, they become scared. They start asking questions. Is this for me? Is this not for me? It doesn't necessarily mean you should go learn a whole programming language, but having that basic knowledge of understanding, like Pride and Akko said, what a line of code is, or even just say someone wrote a CloudFormation template, you interpreting that or reading that. I think those are really important skills to have as you go on being a solutions architect, right? One of the other questions I have, which may be taking a little longer, or it shouldn't sound like you're in an interview, because I know this question probably comes up a lot in interviews, is what does a day-to-day like a solutions architect look like, right? Or what does the day in the life of a solutions architect look like? We're not in an interview, we just want you to share,
Lady S,
highlight on a high level.
Yeah, Lady S.
But I feel like
yeah.
Lady
I
think just to highlight, I think Lady S is saying solutions architect, but I know the audience, everyone surely understand it's cloud architect, right? Lady S, and I just wanted to make sure that people don't mix that up, since they are
right.
So
a cloud architect.
definitely we're talking about cloud architect.
So a solutions architect is something slightly different. I think from there is it's something more or less very specific when you're looking at a solution architect. So it may be looking at a very specific aspect of technology within the cloud. So let's say it may be looking at, say, data analytics, for example, or machine learning, or let's say databases. You can be a solution architect in that.
Mm.
So a cloud architect, you're much more a generalist on a number of things. But you have to understand too that, again, like myself, as a cloud architect, you don't come from nowhere. You come with a certain skill sets. And I think those people who are found, and when I look at my colleagues, I see some of those who were programmers. Yes, and they seem to be biased with everything to do with coding. There's some who have had lots of skills too in databases, and they have a proclivity to do that. Some people have a background in data networking, like myself. Others have in security. So, people come from very different roles. And I think, and just to emphasize what Pride was saying, was that, in time you'll pick up skills in that cloud journey as you go along. I think the main thing is that just be open-minded, because definitely over the course of what you're doing, there will be so many things which you've never heard of. You've never heard of. So just keep an open mind and just try and learn. Now, to the question of talking about what does a typical day look like, I would say that my day all revolves around the projects that you're involved in. So at any one time, I could have, let's say, one, or sometimes I could have even two, or maybe say three concurrent projects at the same time. And these are very, at different stages of what they are. So basically your schedule, therefore, revolves around those projects. And you're more or less working to deliver the particular outputs that you need to do around the projects. There are certain times as well, okay, sometimes you may not be working on a project. You may have, let's say, study leave, let's say a period where your company, in my case, yes, my company does give you times where you can study for a certification or study to get, acquire some new skills. They can give you time for that in order to do that. So that is also to, worthy in noting, of how to fill your day. But within those two aspects, that's what I'm really dealing with. So when you look in, let's say, within a project, there are a number of things that happen there within a project, that loads of meetings. So meetings with your project team, so which is led by a project coordinator or a scrum master, or let's say an agile coordinator. And then within that, there's an extended team of various people with different capabilities and competencies that come into play. And when you're not in meetings, then you are actually working, having meetings with, maybe having side meetings with people who are relevant to that project, or you have your own time where you're actually working to deliver certain outputs for that project. So that's typically what a day would be like. So you manage your time, you manage your calendar, and I think one of the biggest things that I think one of the biggest challenges that you have is that you need to really manage your calendar judiciously as a cloud architect, because again, you would want, I think it's always good for you to keep some time where you can, I think during the day, where you can study some new things. And you'd also want to keep some time where, you don't want to have your day just totally filled with meetings whereby you cannot do any work. So certain times too, you have to very judiciously, set some time aside whereby you can actually do the work that you're supposed to do, and not only be attending meetings all the time. And also, and the other bit too is as well, set some time as well to where you can study something new. Maybe an hour a day. I think it goes a long way.
Yeah.
That's my
And
opinion.
I've heard sometimes, if it helps, there's some teams that do employ no meeting days, because sometimes you spend a lot of time in meetings and end up not doing any work.
Indeed, that's the thing. And I think that there's some companies to also promote downtime. So like, for instance, from like my company, they have an initiative which is called TGIF. Thank God it's Friday, for example, whereby they just spend about, 30 minutes where people come together. They come and just share some certain things, just have some light, it's just easygoing time. Nobody's actually talking about work.
Free
But
pizza.
yeah, downtime, some companies do that. They offer you pizza, they offer you a beer in the office.
Yeah.
And that's all about the culture. I mean, when you have that kind of environment where people can just relax a bit, do some things, or some people say, okay, well, we just go out for a meal. And those are very good. These are invaluable. And so I would advise anybody, please, when you have these kind of social events within your companies, these are great events in actually getting to know your colleagues, because in the end you find out that when the day comes you need a favor, it's far easier to do a favor to somebody who you have actually seen before and
Family
talk to than to somebody you've just spoken to on a Zoom call or on a telephone call.
Right.
So I find that's very important in building rapport with people.
And I think
Yeah.
this is where you as much as you are looking for a job, you also want to understand what the company's culture is and see if this is something if it's a company, because yes, you're going to work for a company and you're looking for a job, but you also want to make sure that it kind of resonates with you as a person, and that the culture promotes some of these things, or a healthy environment, to put it in short words, right? Yeah. So at this point, I didn't have any other questions to ask. I've asked pretty much a lot of what we had in mind. We would, for me, Banjika, if you don't mind, Lady Anne, I don't think Lady T is here anymore. We would want to open up the floor to any other questions if we have any. And I know we're already way above time, the top of the hour. So if we have any questions to ask any of our panelists, this is a good time, to throw your questions.
Yeah, just before they come in, Lady S, yeah, definitely. We've got again above time, so we're already top of the hour, but I think we'll give room for definitely people who would like to have feedback coming in here. But then, so feel free, comments, it could be comments, it could be questions. And then if we have so many questions, you can still share, Pride and Aqua is always here, they'll talk about that. But at least let's take one or two questions. I think Lady N is tracking that. If there are any questions or chat, or if you have any backup question you wanted to bring in that could help do that. Yeah, so please fill in, for those who can put their hands on, they can do that. Or if so Lady N, I don't know if there are any questions in chat. Let's see.
Sure, there are two. The first one is from Watson, and that's to Pride. Please, in your estimate and from your experience, how many years of practical cloud engineering related knowledge could make one, let me start again. Please, in your estimate and from your experience, how many years of practical cloud engineering related knowledge could make one a really valuable asset to their company?
Some of these questions actually make me feel like I'm still in the interview process. The only difference is I'm not wearing a suit this time around. Yeah, but honestly, my brother Watson, the bitter truth is you just need a foundation, because if you start bogging your mind about level of experience, you might actually not go that far. If you have a foundation, a basic foundation about cloud engineering, and then you succeed to get your foot in the door, you succeed to get your foot in the door of any organization, you would actually build on that, because it doesn't really matter. Some people actually get roles with no experience, and with their dedication, they put in the work and they learn every day. And you need to be aware of the fact that it's technology, it's always changing. So if you are not upskilling yourself, you become obsolete at some point. So it's always learning. It's always learning. If you're getting in as a cloud engineer, if that's what you're passionate about, and you have that foundation, and you prove to whoever is interviewing you that you're willing to do the job and you're willing to learn, they'll give you a chance. And then when you get in, the essential thing is to get in, because it's much more difficult for them to kick you out than it is for them to actually take you in. So if they take you in, you will need to have so many fuck ups for them to actually say, no, 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 this guy is not for us. So when you get in, you really have to fold your sleeves, put in the work, and learn.
Great.
I don't know if that answers your question.
Great, great. I think the key thing there is the foundations for Watson. So Binjage, go ahead, please. You have a clear hand up. What's your question?
Yeah, good evening, everyone. My name is Mbitenge Silas. So my question, I don't think it's directed to someone specifically. It's just a question. I was trying to inform someone about Wirfun Cloud so the person could be part of it. And then the person was like, that is like, it doesn't want to get the hands dirty, like doing the labs and all that. So I was trying to find out what kind of path can I advise this person to follow in. Are there courses that will not have to do with the labs and all that, and then you'll be able to get a job and work in the cloud too?
No, no. It's a categorical no. There is just no, because it's part of the learning process. You cannot know, you must go through the labs. And I don't see how the labs are not even challenging. That's not even the challenging bit. So just tell the person categorically that no, they have to go through that entire process of learning and doing the labs and mastering all of that. And it's through the console, so I don't see what the big deal is.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So I think Akwa, you want to add something before?
Yeah, what I'll say is that look, there are many routes within the this cloud domain. You know, so there's an architect route. There are some people that want to go for the business development route and everything. But I think the key thing, as Pride says, is that you must have some foundation. You must at least understand the industry. I think one very good way of understanding is that if you want to be really focused on this, is that look at an industry that you are very much keen on. You may be, let's say, in healthcare, or let's say in banking, for example. Now, there is no single industry or type of organization that is not touched or impacted by the cloud. So therefore, if you can learn at least the basics of the cloud and then understand to how the cloud can add value to your industry, then that is one way in order to know. Because sometimes if you're just saying that, okay, I want to get involved in the cloud, it can just be very generic. But if you say you're a teacher, you are in education, and then you want to understand how you can use the cloud to make you reach out to your students, then you can start seeing how you can start looking at ways in which the cloud can actually help you do that. So yeah. I would say, look at the industry that you are, where you have a vocation or passion in, and then try and look at ways or learn the basics of the cloud, and then see how the cloud can actually add value to that particular industry that you're in.
Yeah. And just to remind everyone, right, here at WeFund Cloud, we believe that the fundamental level, if you want to have a solid foundation, right, apart from is the way you do your certification, right? For example, look at the architecting course. It's going to be about 60 hours. You have about of learning. You have to put in so much hours on the theory and then some hours on the hands-on. That is the foundation. After that, if you want to be a cloud architect, if you want to be a developer, if you want to be an infrastructure architect, all these roles, they have different requirements when you start looking at them differently. When you want to be a cloud engineer, so, but because someone who is very good in articulating, who is very good in communication, you've heard all of that, especially for the cloud architect, you may find a space, right? Maybe limited, but the key thing is, we strongly believe that some basics of hands-on, you can't just say that I don't want to do hands-on at all. So I think that kind of person is not yet really ready for the cloud. We strongly believe that you need that minimum. So yeah, so you want to come in, Lady S, because for the sake of—
Yes, I just wanted to add something really quick, which might benefit anybody here. When you're testing new waters, or you want to learn something new and you start setting boundaries around you, not to put it too blank, but you're setting yourself up for failure. you want to do something and you start saying, I want to do this, but I don't want to get my hands dirty. You're completely outrightly setting yourself up for failure. So this one, take it from me coming up as probably in my community builder leadership skills to give you advice on this. If you're going in for something, be open-minded and ready to get in and put in the work. Learn what you want to do, learn the things around that environment you want to work on. Then when you're in, you select what you want to do. But if you're coming into something and you start building a wall, trust me, you're not going to break it. You just enclose yourself in that area and that's it. You're setting yourself up for failure and you'll just be stuck in that path.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Lady Eshu. Colette, you want to come in? Then we have that question from, I think you have one question on chat. Come in. Yeah, our Scrum Master, come in.
Oh, yeah. Thank you very much, Banjika. Good evening, everyone. I really want to appreciate Akko and Pride for their contributions this evening. And thank you all for what you have said today. I think, and I strongly believe that we have all gathered so much from your testimonies, and people that were lagging behind who have obviously learned from your success, and they're going to put their hands and feet in water, burn the midnight candles and get those rules coming in. I wanted to chip in to answer Silas's question, right? And this is my own personal experience. When you're doing something, it comes from a point where you have analyzed so many things on a personal level to the point where you want to do that thing, and getting someone to do it with you, that person needs to see it from the same lens that you're seeing it before they can actually believe in the process and pull along with you. If you tell someone about the cloud and how it works and how, to the best of your knowledge, that person would be taking, if it's not something that is interesting to them at that particular point, you're basically just wasting your time. At times, it's best to give them that knowledge and allow them to do their own research to see where they fit, what would interest them. And if they come back to you now, you can now be able to divert their interest towards what would be less stressful for you. What I've noticed in trying to bring people into the tech world is when you talk to someone, I've found out this, and this is an amazing opportunity. All they do is they want to give me more work. Can you tell me about this? Can you tell me about this? But when you come across someone who is interested in what you're saying, they'll probably will be the ones to come with questions like, I tried looking for this, I tried looking for that, and this is what I found out. Can you give me more clarity? Now you can work with that person. If you talk to someone and they're already setting boundaries, like, I don't want something that is more difficult, I don't want something that is technical, I don't want something that is this, that's already setting, it's already telling you that if you engage with that person, they're going to give you more work than someone who is wants to get that knowledge. The best thing I would advise you to do is ask people what they want to do. And then from what they tell you, you can propose what you have and watch what they do with the information you're giving them. And that's what we do here at Reform Cloud. We give as much information as we can, and then we welcome the people that are coming in with those questions. And then you have now the premium Reform Cloud subscription, where they're really interested people that want to put in their time and make it work for them, are getting involved in that, because when you give information out for free, people don't really get, like, they don't value it. Even though you know that it is valuable information, it is difficult for them to reach that level of your knowledge because they don't see it from your perspective.
Absolutely.
So that is my own little contribution, and thanks everyone. I would be on the background and listen.
Definitely, don't go. We have Karashin coming up. Thanks, then. So go ahead, Lady N, with your question, so that we should close this soon. Akko and White is here. The last question you have from chat. Yeah.
Yes, that is a question from Vero. That's for Pride. Did you have an experienced architect mentor you? Sorry.
First of all, I need you guys to understand that I was very hungry. I needed a role, a job, wherever it was. I really did not care where it was coming from. I just wanted to work. So I made use of every single person that I knew that I had any experience in the cloud. I mean, Uncle Banjeka will tell you I will not let him rest sometimes. Akpo himself, sometimes I'll write and I'll just pester him. Lady Annie herself, she knew. I mean, I'd reach out to anybody, even my brother Michael. I don't know if he's on the call right now. I'll reach out to anybody to get any piece of information that I can use to actually make things work for me. Because for me, yeah, I don't want to limit the idea of a mentor to just one person who was experienced and actually helped me with advice. I know everybody around me, even people who were in IT and who were not actually cloud architects. My partner, for an example, I actually used as well because I will ask things related to the IT industry and how things work. So I had a lot of advice coming in from anybody that I could meet. And I always draw my inspiration from this phrase that one guy told me once, that all you need in this life is confidence and ignorance, and success is sure to follow. Because I actually adopted the attitude that I did not know anything. In as much as I did and knew, I spent my time reading, just reading, but I always actually approached it like I was new to it, and even a novice could give me advice on it. So basically, that's it. That's
Okay.
it. I did not have a particular mentor. I had so many mentors, and I had Wave from Cloud day in, day out. I'll trouble you to answer my questions. I mean, they can testify. They're all here. So if you adopt that attitude, there is nothing stopping you.
Great.
But I think I can add something to it, Veronica here. My question was really, when you were talking about working as a cloud architect, it was more like when you started your job being a novice in quote, did you have like someone from your organization who mentored you? That's where
from
the
my
question
organization.
came. Yeah, from your organization. Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
No, I did not have anyone from my organization mentor me, but I had a team of guys who were very open and ready to help out whenever I needed help, I needed answers. So if I reach out to my line manager, for instance, and the guy is a very nice guy, very lovely chap, and he'll basically encourage me to it's okay, you don't worry about it. You can do it this way, you can do it that way. This is how we do it here. And it has been a very easy process, transitioning into this organization and learning. Every day I learn, but a mentor, particularly in my organization, no. But a team of wonderful guys who are always willing and ready to give you a helping hand wherever you need it.
Great.
Okay, that could be slightly mentorship, although not really called a mentor in that respect. Thank you, Pride. Thank you. Yeah. I mean, my question is really coming from the area where sometimes, and especially for someone who hasn't done something, you're going okay, you've succeeded, you've been selected, and you're going to start the job. But of course, there is the culture of the organization and all what that surrounds it. But then when you always, like the first days, the first weeks, you have someone who holds your hand as we keep holding each other's hand. It always, at least for me, it's kind of settling when you have that kind of culture in an organization. Like if I hear like for Akko, like 2 weeks and then you are thrown into a project, of course, if you don't come with that mega confidence, of course, you will still be able to ask questions and get yourself through. But if I were to start a job and in 2 weeks I'm thrown in like that, it might bring some panic. Of course, Akko is coming with so much experience from another field. I mean, it was just for me to understand, like, okay, for you who was really a novice in a way, in quotes, if you had that support and all of that. Thanks.
Yeah.
Vero, to assuage your fears, I'm pretty sure Akko mentioned it earlier. There is no organization that will take you in during the first month or two and just throw you in the deep end.
Yeah, right.
Honestly, they give you a grace period to be able to acclimatize, to understand the culture of the organization, to actually, because they understand, they know you're new here, even if you have 10 years of experience, they give you time. They give you time. It doesn't matter if you're a novice or you're experienced, they just give you time to understand what's happening here. So I honestly don't think you should be worried like that. If you get in, trust me, they'll give you time to understand a few things and you'll pick it up before you even know it.
Yeah, Akko, I'll make you, I see you wanted to come in, but please just make it short for
Yeah,
the
I'll make it very briefly.
At least we have about, we're already 20 minutes after the hour, so just make it short for
Yes.
Vero.
So I'd say, Vero, what will happen, and this happens in my organization as well. You have a period of actually shadowing. So working with, let's say, an experienced colleague, shadowing that person on a project a couple of times. So I've actually seen some new people actually do that. So it helps people just actually understand, about the role a bit more. So I think it's very rare that they can just really throw you into the deep end. In my case, so it could happen, but I think in most cases, what tends to happen is that people who are new, they would just be working alongside another experienced colleague and shadow that person, let's say for one project or two projects, and that's typically how they would do it. I think, I don't know, I may have been very fortunate or in that line to be just being thrown into a project, but it depends on the organization.
I think absolutely it falls on, because they recognize you are capable, right? The thing is, I think everyone should also remember that organizations want you to succeed, right? They can't put you in a situation where you will not succeed. They want you to succeed. They want you to help. I think all along, as we are slowly rounding up, the key thing we've heard so much is communication, interpersonal skills. Once you have those things, I like in my company, they have been talking about mentorship for about 2-3 years, right? But till yet, I still have not yet been assigned a mentor, but work keeps going. What then do you do? That's where interpersonal skills that have really been emphasized here. At times, you shouldn't wait for a mentor, right? You always have your manager, your inline manager. You talk to him about your needs, because they definitely want you to succeed. They will go ahead and cater for your own needs as well, right? So one thing, so that's why, just to put that, I know Theo leads the lab sessions here. We have the project sessions where Colette is leading. And apart from that, the Linux sessions, I remember leaving Thursday and say, I'm not coming, you people come and see what you can do. What I'm trying to point out is, if you join WeFundCloud, you should be able to learn how to make new friends here. Don't just come to the sessions and then you go. Learn to connect with people individually, learn to know what everyone also is doing, build that interpersonal skills. It is part of your learning process. Because you come into a new environment, you don't know anyone, and then maybe down the road, 3, 4, 5, 6 months, there are some people you are not very comfortable talking with. You can ask, you can reach out to them. That's a key skill that you can also carry up to your job. So you go and learn in a job, everyone is completely new. How do you start building skills? And I think those social aspects that Akko did emphasize on, where you need to go to all these events, where you need to, participate in meetings. At times you just have colleagues who just want you to go on break with them, right? You're sitting, someone just walk, they want you to go on break because it's going, or people like to go on break, maybe 3 or 4 together, right? So it's important to always go out, walk with people, have a conversation that maybe is not job related, because very soon you'll be needing them very soon. And it's, as Akko mentioned, it's much easier to go to someone you have sat and had a beer with, or maybe someone you've had lunch with, because now it's different. So I know we'll be having more of these conversations, but I wanted to just make a quick key takeaways from what we have had today, and then and then we kind of like round up this session so that we can then still stay a bit longer, because I know it's 10:30. And please, during that session, maybe if there is something to add on, it will be great. But throughout our conversations, I think the key things that have come up, being a cloud architect, right? We know there are so many different roles in the cloud, but we are talking about the cloud architect today. We've heard about, the process to work. Certifications are important, but the way you do them matter, right? Don't just study, Pride mentioned that. Don't just study because you want to have this certification and start thinking that you have a job. what was your process? You really learned something, you know, how confident are you able to articulate whatever you have learned, right? So which is something we want to carry on WeFund Cloud. We don't just want people to rush, you know, do certifications and then after all, they realize that I don't have that knowledge. So what are your interpersonal skills that you have built? I think it goes around how polite are you, you know, dealing with people. I think that was not mentioned, but I think interpersonal skills keep coming on. And I said how polite you are. Then the confidence, right? Of course, saying that even if you are delivering bullshit, right? But how confident are you in defending the solution you are proposing? There are always many ways, as highly already articulated, that something can be done, but the confidence you have in explaining what you have could be crucial, right? So I think these are some of those things that really did come up very often. And remember that as a cloud architect, you always work around specifications, right? So your company will always tell you want to do this, do this. So you have a paper where you're looking and then you start that. That was highlighted by Akko. And yeah, definitely fundamentals of the cloud, the foundation. And here, when we keep talking about foundation, how much do you understand what is compute in the cloud? What is storage in the cloud? What is networking, right? What are the databases involved in the cloud? These are always going to be the building blocks. And we emphasize that if you're in the AWS, having the solutions architect associate after going maybe through 4 months of what we think, we don't want to just go again back to take this AWS course on Udemy, do it, and you think, okay, we've been emphasizing that people should do hands-on, but we don't always know how serious they take that. But if we integrate that into the course, definitely people will follow along. And also understanding the kind of people we have on our environment. So those are some of the key things I wanted to throw out. And then I'll let Shulika, Lady S, if you are still there. You've been moderating this for quite a while. Maybe there is some last takeaway from you, and then we move into the closing. I take this off, Sonia. If you have, if not, we can just proceed. That's okay.
Okay, thank you so much. And I really want to take a moment and thank Akko and Pride a lot for sharing their experiences and being so open, you know, to sharing and to giving us, you know, advice and letting us know what are those skills that are important in this. And I think these conversations are very important because for the first time WeFund Cloud hasn't really had people who are on the job that would let you know or give you advice on what their live-in experiences are, right? So this was also very informational to me as a person. And like I said, I'll probably be reaching out to both of you. I already have. And I'm pretty much sure every other person around here is going to reach out to you for advice or tips, 1 or 2 places. So thank you all so much. I took a lot of notes from these conversations, and I hope that as we proceed, we may serve as mentors, or you may serve as mentors, you know, to WeFund Cloud. And yeah, looking forward to hearing more success stories from WeFund Cloud. I am so proud and happy because I am, like I said, I am new with Akko. We were among the first batch, Lady Ann, Brother B, myself, Lady T. It was a group of 10 very inclusive people, and I'm happy that we do have some of these success stories to share. So thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Shu. Thank you so much, Akko, again, for always being there. Pride, it's been great.